Listen to me. Cash transactions are so much more challenging than sub 2. You guys think sub 2 is more challenging? Sub 2 is way, way, way easier. Today, we're gonna give you guys a breakdown of a deal on Flower Street. So let's go through the full process of buying a house subject to. Here's where it starts. Every deal starts with what, Eric? What does every deal start with?
Seller.
A seller. Oh my gosh, it starts with a seller, somebody who owns the property that has what? Not just a house, but what do they have?
A mortgage.
Okay, I like that. That's a sub 2 deal, but what if it's seller finance? They don't have a mortgage, right?
They have a deed.
They do have a deed. Ooh, I'm liking this. Eric is getting this. Okay, Eric, you got a deed, but what else do they have? In order for me to buy their house at a discount or on terms, what do they have to have? It's more of an emotional thing. I call them bunnies or motivation. So when people are starting out in this business, they always want to wonder, where do these deals come from? And why would a seller sell to you and let you take over their 2.625? What's your interest rate on your house? 3.25? I got one at 2.625, bro. How did I do that? The way I did it is because we focused on motivation. We'll get to that in just a second. So every deal starts with a seller. And then what typically happens is you have an agent involved. Why do you have an agent involved? Well, because most homeowners don't understand where to find investors. This seller had a lot of motivation. So let me list out his motivation. Number one is he had a recent job change, okay? So that's why he wanted to sell. That's a good reason or motivation to sell your property, but not a motivation to sell on sub 2. He had no equity is a really big one. Why did he have no equity? Well, because he bought this property in 2021 and the market was trending upward and now the market is trending downward. He bought the property with a VA loan and he put $0 down when he originally bought the house. When you buy a house, you have all sorts of closing costs and home warranties and all these things. You buy a house over what you actually offer for it. You always pay more. And the house immediately, if you sell it today, for example, let's say I buy a house today and I buy it for $300,000. Let's say I pay cash for it, 300 grand. Tomorrow, I want to turn around and sell that house for $300,000. Am I going to get $300,000 back? No. I'm probably going to get about $260,000 to $275,000 for that house that I just bought for $300,000 and I sold for $300,000. So people at $300,000 that are selling for $300,000 are actually going to lose money. That's how real estate works because you have all these people involved, lots of people that are involved in these transactions. Agent, broker, escrow officer, title company, inspector, home warranty, all sorts of expenses get taken out of that $300,000. So if you're a homeowner, you bought the property in 2021, market was going up, now the market's going down, you didn't put any money down on the property, and now you're going to sell it through an agent. The agent failed to sell the house. So what happens is after 5.5 months of trying to sell the house, one of my students, Kevin Cho, I told him about a year ago, I said, start reaching out to agents who have listings over 100 days or later. The agents are going to be more motivated to do deals with you because they're having a hard time selling the house on the market. So Kevin Cho starts reaching out. We call this the Kevin Cho list. So purchased in 2020 to 2022, and it's currently on the MLS with an agent over 100 days. The way you can get that list, by the way, is you can go to startwithprivy.com and you can get that list. So Kevin calls the list, talks to the agent. Guess what the agent says? Agent says no and loses the listing. So what does Kevin do? Kevin then says, well, I'm not going to wait for you. So he calls the seller directly. What do you think the seller says? Seller says, yes, I'll let you take over my payments subject to. Agent gets fired. So Kevin reaches out to the seller and explains to the seller, hey, I can take over your payments. Why is that such a big deal for the seller? Well, because the seller, remember this seller right here, for 5.5 months had a vacant property because he had a recent job change out of state. So seller leaves the property vacant to let the real estate agent sell the property. And for 5.5 months is not only making the rent payment where he currently lives, but he's now making the payment of $1,268 a month at 2.265% interest. He's got pain and motivation here. This is one of the best opportunities in all of real estate right now is expired listings Okay, so what is an expired listing? Right here, an agent got fired. So seller says, yeah, really? You would take, instead of you saying, why would a seller let me take over his payments subject to, look at the reasons why. He went through 5.5 months of making payments. Kind of changes your paradigm a little bit for you to say, go from why would a seller do it to, oh my gosh, I totally understand why a seller would do this. Do you want to make 2 payments a month after you just took a job change that's supposed to upgrade and drastically change your life in a positive way? But then just find out that you have 5 months of payments on a house that the agent said he could sell for you, but he couldn't? No, a lot of pain here, okay? Seller says, absolutely, I'll let you take over my house payment, but I want $25,000 is what the seller wanted, $25,000. Here's the challenge. This house was purchased for $277,000. I would have happily paid an agent a 3% commission by representing us, but the agent got fired because the agent told Kevin Cho no. Because the agent doesn't understand creative finance. This is the number one thing that you will run into with agents, is they will not follow through with their fiduciary responsibility with their clients. Yes, if you're an agent and you're listening to me, you're a broker, you're listening to me, you are not fulfilling your obligation working with your seller if you are not presenting all offers to your seller. So this is the pain and the motivation. These are the bunnies that the seller is experiencing. So here's how subject to works. Kevin takes one of our contracts, he hires a transaction coordinator. Transaction coordinator calls the seller, walks the seller through the sub-2 paperwork. Yes, it's a separate contract, and no, I will never give you a sub-2 or seller finance contract. Mine are private. I do so many transactions, sub-2 and seller finance. They change so frequently. I only give them to my students. So if you want a sub-2 or seller finance or a purchase contract, go to my students, okay? Or go hire your own attorney. It'll cost you at least $10,000 to $12,000 to get a proper contract written with the proper disclosures. This purchase contract, a sub-2 contract, okay? You have a purchase contract and then you have 7 other documents, okay? It is not just a purchase contract. There are 7 other documents attached to this that all need to be signed. Okay, so this purchase contract then gets sent over to, where does it go? Title company. Okay, so the girls inside the title company, they receive the paperwork and then they call the seller and they go, hey seller, we see there's a purchase contract, just want to verify that you're in contract with Kevin Cho and his team. Seller says yes. They have now officially opened escrow. Here's what happens in sub-2. This is where sub-2 is it's so much, I'm telling you, listen to me. Cash transactions are so much more challenging than sub-2. You guys think sub-2 is more challenging? Sub-2 is way, way, way easier. I can close a sub-2 deal in 2 to 3 days max. If I have a lender involved, which we're not getting a lender involved, we're just taking over payments here, okay? The deed, okay, the certificate of ownership, the title company is transferring that to the end buyer. So Kevin Cho, my student, assigns this contract to me. That assignment contract also goes to title. So the deed goes to title, the purchase contract goes to title, the assignment contract goes to title, and the title company cooks up and works up the whole transaction. Their job is, for me, the buyer, to take all my money and I wire it to the title company. Out of my money that gets wired, let's add up what it is, 25 grand, 15 grand, 5 grand, so 45. So $55,000 is what it took to get this deal done. I wire $55,000 to the title company. Where does that 55 grand come from, Eric? Private money. So private money lender. Where do I find private money? Go in the link in the description down below. I have a whole private money training free on YouTube just for you, okay? Private money, where do you find it? Link. Private money do they give me the money, Eric?
No.
Where does the money go? Title. Does the private money lender ever wire money to me? No. So that money only goes to title. And the agreement that I have with that private money lender is called a note and a deed of trust, okay, which is a mortgage in Arizona. So I have an agreement between me and my private money lender. That agreement for me is 8% interest only. So $366, I'm gonna borrow the 55 grand at $366 a month. The title company sets up my agreement, they set up servicing, they set everything up, they pull the money out of my bank account in the future. Everything's automated, okay? The person who does all of that is the title company and the transaction coordinator, okay? I can see why real estate is complicated for people. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of people involved making a lot of money. Okay, so who gets paid? Well, here's what happens. Once my money hits the title company, 55 grand, they decide, hey, we're ready to close escrow. Then the title company wires 25 grand to the seller. They wire $15,000 to Kevin. They take $5,000 for their closing costs. And then I keep $10,000 in their escrow account for future renovations. So my $55,000 did not come from me. I'm $0 out of pocket. The deed or the ownership, the title company makes sure it's put into my name, okay? So Pace is now the owner of the property, and the payments are coming out of my bank account and paying for this $1,268 payment plus my $366 payment every single month. Now I own the property. Here's the house. The $10,000 is gonna go and renovate the property. I'm then going to continue to have a $1,268 monthly payment, and then we're gonna have a $366 monthly payment that goes to private money lender. Okay, so $1,268 monthly payment, where does that go? Goes towards the loan. It's one of those obvious questions where you're like, wait, is this a trick question? Okay, so goes towards the loan that I just took over subject to, right? Who's the owner of the property?
You.
Me. Whose name is on the loan?
The seller.
Seller. Perfect. So I know I have a payment every single month of 15, let's just say it's 1,500, 1,600. Let's say it's 1,650 bucks, okay? I don't care about the math being perfect. So we know we can rent this house right now for $1,800 a month. Okay, cool. So I'm into the deal, no money. My private money lender is making $366 per month. My loan pay down is happening right now. Okay, so this is what I call the delta, $277,500. Right now, the house has no equity. I basically bought it for $277,500 plus 55 grand. I paid $55,000 over what this property could not sell for. Does that make sense? I paid 15 grand to Kevin, 25 grand to the seller. I didn't buy the house. That's the thing that people don't understand about subject to. I didn't buy the house. Yes, technically I did, but really what I bought is this, 2.625% interest. That's what I really bought. That's what I cared about. The value of that will far outweigh what I paid in renovation and assignment fees on this house. So this is what I owe today. Here's what's great, is over time, this will pay down to, let's say in 10 years, I'll owe $180,000 on this. Well, guess what? In 10 years, this property will also be worth $425,000. And this is called the delta. This is how real estate investors make money, okay? Yes, cash flow is cool. And yes, I can cash flow, which I'll get to that in a second. But really what I care about is the future delta. Well, this is where wealth is. Okay, this is where I have a silent savings account. Eric, if I rent this property today, I have a total payment of $1,650 a month, and I rent this for $1,800 a month. Do I have a net cash flow of $150 per month?
No.
No, why not? We call this CapEx, or we call this the vacancy and repairs. Let's say I rent this property out for 12 months, right? So I've got January, February, March, all the way to December. And I have a tenant all the way through here. $150 a month equals $1,800. Ironically, I did not mean for it to do that, but that means $1,800 in cash flow. $150 I'm making every single month. If January comes and that tenant moves out and I can't get a tenant back in there until February, did I actually make any net cash flow for the last 12 months? No. This $1,800 actually now has to go back and pay these payments. I didn't really make any cash flow. So that is not a great cash flowing property. It's more of a break-even property, okay? Especially what happens if in a year I have carpet, I have a new air conditioning unit, I have roofing repairs, I have all that kind of stuff. I wanna make sure I'm cash flowing $400 or $500 every single month. So what can I do to make more money here, Eric?
Cash out refi.
No, I would never do a cash out refi.
Oh yeah.
Why would I get rid of that? That's my prize joy. I would never get rid of that. So what would I do different than maybe a rental? Different exit strategy, right? So if I'm not going to be able to, if I can break even on a rental, I'll buy the deal, this is kind of a break even. I would change my exit strategy to maybe a lease option, I could do it on a wrap. If I did it on a wrap, I would not need to spend the $10,000 to renovate the property, which is kind of cool. I could do Airbnb, right? Midterm rental. I could do sober living, or let's just say group homes, corporate rental, or insurance rentals. There you go. So I can amplify my cash flow on this deal. Let's say I do a group home. This property will bring in about $5,500 a month on a group home. Lease option, instead of being $1,800, I probably get $2,100. On a wrap, I could get $2,100 as well. Corporate and insurance probably get closer to like $4,000. Airbnb, $3,500. Midterm rental, probably $3,500. So you can make more money on these strategies. How do you determine which strategy to use? Well, it depends on what resources, what relationships, what your passions are. Personally, I'm not a big fan of group homes unless I have somebody to operate them for me. So that's a good example of, do I have a resource to rent this out? I have a guy named Patrick that every time I get a house like this, I call Patrick and I go, do you want this as a group home? And if he says yes, I rent it out to him. I sublease it for double my average payment. So he could bring in $5,500, but I would take my $1,800 rent rate and double it to him, so I'd bring in about $3,600 a month. I'd make a really good amount of money, all right? Instead of me going from a break-even situation, I would probably end up making about 20 grand a year. Why? Because $1,800, that's what I could rent it for. I would double that and I would give it to Patrick, okay? So now I'm cash flowing $1,800 a month instead of $150 a month. Multiply that by 12, you're gonna be somewhere around $20,000. That makes a lot more sense, right? In the long term. But what if you're one of these people that's buying a lot of properties and you can't find enough people to rent them out from the group home or Airbnb? There's a lot of positives and negatives of each exit strategy, and you have to make a determination. So was this in-depth enough? Almost to the point where it's probably too fast. Actually, no, I did a damn good job. If I did a damn good job, then tell me in the comments down below, and we'll see you in the next video.